Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the possibility of war with Iran. Okay, so there's a couple of assumptions that we're going to make here. Okay, we're going to assume that Iran is not a U.S. proxy. Okay, so the assumption here, okay, is that the United States did not call up the head sheikh in Iran and said, "Hey, you know what? We sent this new shipment of missiles to Israel, and we want to test out the ability of the Israelis to be able to shoot down these incoming fire. So we need you to motivate your proxies and get them to start a war with with Israel." Okay, we're going to assume that that's not what happened. Okay, that's the assumption that we're going to go with. Okay. Because I'm sure that what most likely happened is the Iranian sheikh was like, I really don't have time for this. I have a date with my favorite camel. I'm going to try and fertilize her this weekend. The American CIA guy was like, no, you're going to have to put that off. We need to get this war started because we got to test out these new, anti-missile technology that we gave to the Israelis. We want to be able to fine tune it, that kind of stuff. Okay, so assuming that that's not what happened, okay, and that Iran is actually the one in charge, and it itself is motivated to get Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis to attack Israel on its own. Assuming that's the case, okay. And now the United States is in the situation where Iran is doing bad things, okay? This would really be an ideal time if they wanted to start a war with Iran, to start a war with Iran, okay? The reason is because, in the past, right, the concern was that if the United States started a war anywhere in the world, the other major powers, right, which is kind of China and maybe Russia, okay, might do something to, counter it, okay, which is kind of like the impression that they gave us, like in the Middle East, where the Russians were, aiding the Syrians or aiding Syrian rebels. And if that's the case, the appearance is that the United States got pissed off at the Russians for giving them a hard time in Syria. So they decided to basically start something up in Ukraine in order to keep Russia busy near their own border. Okay, and at the same time, simultaneously, whipping NATO into shape. Getting the European countries to all of a sudden come back, running into NATO and reassessing their love for the United States. Okay, assuming that Iran is not a U.S. proxy, assuming that Iran is acting on its own, now that Russia is really busy with Ukraine, that would be an ideal time if they wanted to hit Iran. Okay. Now, what would they hope to accomplish out of something like this? Well, they keep talking about Iran developing nuclear technology. Obviously, nuclear facilities are very stationary. The CIA probably knows exactly where they are, how deep on the ground they are. So that would be one of the goals, hitting the various the missile sites, again, large things that are easy to see on satellite, and also from what I hear, Iran is supplying drones to Russia, which I kind of find weird, right? Why is Russia, which you would think would be technologically more advanced, why are they buying drones from Iran? That's kind of a weird situation. However, again, assuming that Russia is really acting independently and Iran is really acting independently here, and again, assuming that that the Ukraine-Russia war is real and not the United States basically pulling the puppet strings of both sides, getting both of them to fight, right, and motivating both of them to go fight each other. Assuming that's the case, you know, if Russia is using these drones to basically fight this war in Ukraine, again, attacking Iran, attacking the factories that create those drones, you know, would also have the added benefit of you know, aiding the Ukrainians. Okay, so I mean, it's just, you know, again, this is kind of like the way things look. Overall, again, I believe that the United States is pretty much pulling the puppet strings all over the world. Okay, they're the ones pushing the Russians to have a war with Ukraine. They're the ones pushing Iran to push Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis to attack Israel. But if that's not the case, right, if Iran is not a closet ally of the United States, now would probably be a really good time to basically just, I don't know, if not wipe them off the map, reduce their military to a point where, you know, they no longer have missiles, large tanks, aircraft, that kind of stuff. Okay. Now, I've said in the past that, you know, I used to be very, you know, I pretty much supported every war that the United States was in. And my position now is I am against every war that the United States engages, because wars that the United States engages in, right, all they seem to do is give more power to people here in the United States that should not have power. Okay, perfect case in point was September 11th attacks. Okay, they used that opportunity to basically pass things like the Unpatriot Act and enhance their ability to spy on Americans and reduce our liberties. Okay, so for that reason, I am very much against the U.S. military, really, right, at this point, right? And again, don't confuse that with people serving in the military, but the overall, you know, top line military leadership and the military industrial complex. These are people that have gained power. In fact, I think they're actually pulling the strings of the politicians, right? Because all these military people, you know, the top brass, they look forward to, they've already got jobs lined up with the military industry after they retire. Okay, so that's their retirement package. You know, that's covered by the military industry. Likewise, I'm sure that the industry gives, you know, funds the campaigns of all the politicians. So the reality of it is that the military industry of the United States really is in control of the United States. Okay, so that's why I am against, you know, against the U.S. going into any wars, because it empowers people in the United States that should not have power. That all said, I don't think that, you know, they're going to listen to us. They're going to do whatever they want to do. And so there's two possibilities here, right? Like I said, that either the United States is the puppet master pulling the puppet strings of everybody around the world, or it is true that Russia is actually acting independently and they want to have this war in Ukraine, all right? Or they've been tricked into having this war in Ukraine. And likewise, Iran is actually working in its own interests, you know, and it's basically pushing and funding these terrorist organizations, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis. If that's the case, okay, logically speaking, strategically speaking, this is the perfect time to attack Iran and just basically get them off the map. Okay? Again, not that I think they're going to do it, because I said this in a prior video. Iran is the mechanism by which the United States controls Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. Okay, you take away Iran, and now Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, and even Israel really don't have a need for the United States. Okay, so by keeping Iran on the map as a, you know, credible threat, you keep Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Israel, you know, eating out of your hand, basically. Okay, China seems like it's It seems like China does business with Israel, so I don't think that they have a real interest. I don't think they have too much of an interest in this. I mean, I think they want to keep their business relationships with Israel. In the last video, I talked about China and Taiwan. And again, I think the United States is using China, feeding China, right? Because basically they get most of the money from us, from the United States. I think they use China to kind of whip the rest of Asia into place, right? That's how they control Taiwan, control Japan, control, South Korea, right? All these big money places in Asia. They use China to control them, right? Otherwise, because if you think about it, if China was a true enemy, right, wouldn't we just stop doing business with China? Okay, you don't trade with enemies, you trade with allies. Okay, so ignoring what the government tells us, if they're allowing a huge trade to continue with China, they're not an enemy. They're an ally. They're doing business with them. Okay, so again, there's a lot more going on here behind the scenes. So I think China is just a mechanism that they use to keep Asia under control. The one, I mentioned this last time, the one wild card in this is Turkey. Okay, prior Ottoman Empire. Okay, because in the last video I had basically Russia up here, so I had USA, Russia, and China. I took Russia down because I don't even think they qualify as a world power anymore. They're just a puppet of the United States. It's kind of being either directly controlled or controlled, by, manipulation. But Turkey wants to be up here. Okay, Turkey wants to go back to being a world power. They want to go back to the good old days for them of the Ottoman Empire. So Turkey is the one to really keep an eye on, because if the United States goes to war, decides to knock out Iran, there is a good chance, right, that Turkey is the one that might try to back Iran up. Okay, it won't be Egypt and it won't be Saudi Arabia, because they have a very nice relationship with the United States. They're basically driving around in U.S. tanks. They're flying U.S. airplanes. All these, U.S. airplanes, right? Just look at the targeting systems. They're run by computers, okay? So I seriously doubt the United States sold airplanes and missiles to Egypt and Saudi Arabia that run on electronics without having a backdoor off switch, right? Where they could just shut down that equipment, electronically at the flip of a switch, okay? Or vice versa. If they don't continually get the signal, they automatically shut down, okay? Now, Turkey, I also believe gets some equipment from the United States, but they also develop their own. So that's the one I would watch, okay? Because I don't think Egypt and Saudi Arabia really see themselves as getting up here, but Turkey really wants to be up there. They pretty much have made that plainly. The president of Turkey has pretty much said that. He wants to bring Turkey back to being a world power. So that's the one I would watch. But anyway, that's the kind of thing I wanted to discuss with you guys. I don't have any inside information. Again, like I discussed in prior videos, we don't get enough information to make our own, to really understand what's going on. We have to kind of look at the shadow that the events create and try to figure out from that shadow what's really going on. Who wants to be where, what's driving them, what position are they in to affect things in what way, and that's really the best way to understand what's going on in the world. Okay, so let me know what you guys think. Right? I'm not saying that this is my opinion. Okay, if you have different opinions, or if you have if you see things slightly differently or whatever, or very differently, let me know in the comments. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll talk to y'all soon. Hey, one more thing worth adding. How difficult do I think that a war with Iran would be for the United States? Not any more difficult than the war with Iraq was. Prior to the point where they started going house to house. Okay, so I don't think there would be any need for that I think the ideal type of strategic situation would be to essentially destroy half of Iran's army and then give them a reason to want to protect the other half. Right? So you take half of it away, and then you say, "Hey, listen, you want to keep the other half? Sit down and shut up." Okay, that's what I think would kind of make sense. Not trying to do some type of regime change or anything like that. But let's think of it this way: Iraq and Iran had a war, right? Saddam Hussein, from what I understand, mostly defeated Iran. Okay, so Iran is about as powerful as Iraq was, probably a little bit less. Okay, so that's what a war with, whatever we saw in Iraq is most likely what we would see in Iran. Okay, so my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think.